morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. Whatever time of day it is you decided to join me again, welcome and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, hit the like and hit the subscribe. I'm sorry to my current viewers, I've been kind of amiss or away, and due to the fact that, hey, life happens, okay? But I'm really happy to be talking to you again, and I have a really interesting topic to talk about. Of course, you know, before we get started or into anything, hit the like, hit the subscribe. I'm going to ask my viewers that you share this video with at least one person you know. That's it, just one person, and maybe they'll share it with one person, and we'll each one reach one, or each one teach one. Okay, I want to get into a topic of the Black Panther, Hollywood's agenda-driven movies, the city of Atlantis, and religion, and how this all connects together. And I know you're going to yourself now, Max, this is really strange. You know, how are you going to connect a movie, Atlantis, and religion? Let's see. We all know that Wakanda is a mythical place, and you know, shout out to Marvel, by the way. Thank you for making a second part to a movie with a predominantly African American or Black African cast. Really proud of that fact. They went 2 inches to a mile. But there are some disappointments that I do have. But we all know that Wakanda, which is the subtitle of this movie, Wakanda Forever, is a mythical place in Africa, a mythical city with advanced technologies to our time, based off of a comic book novel. But there's another city that's going to be featured in this movie that's not so mythical, and it is also located in Africa. Now, I know when most of us think of Atlantis, we think about all the many movies that were made, or the many falsehoods that were brought to us by this city, or by its interpretation, from the writers to the historians to the researchers that are always in the Atlantic Ocean thinking this place is buried. And for the decades, they found nothing until about 3 years ago. They made a very interesting discovery, and it wasn't something they truly expected. And I think you can go to a YouTube channel called Bright Insight for a lot of clarity on this subject. But anyway, the lost city of Atlantis, found in the Sahara Desert in Africa. So let's get caught up on a little history real quickly. The lost city of Atlantis was a place thought by many or some not to be a real place. It was written by a writer named Plato, and during the time of the Greeks in about 650 BC. And he ascribed to say that he wrote this from the writings of a guy named Solon. And Solon got it off the walls of Egypt in the Temple of Horus from the Epotex. Now, if you do know anything about the Epotex, we currently get a lot of our history from it. The Epotex in the Halls of Horus describes a lot of the Egyptians and where they came from. So, in essence, the Egyptians were the first people to write about the city of Atlantis. In fact, so much till they say that they came from the people in the city of Atlantis. So then, we know that the Egyptians are Africans. This has been argued and settled. And if they came from the city of Atlantis, then Atlanteans were African. Now, I'm going to show you clip to where they knew this, and it's in Wikipedia. If you type in Wikipedia and you type in Atlantis, you will see that the esoteric groups, the original groups that wrote about the Atlanteans, wrote about them being brown-skinned or black people. Wow. Now, my brother brought up something. He says, "Man, you know, what is the significance of this? What is the significance of this? You know, the significance of this is that you're going to see a lot of movies that place historical facts, that art imitates life, but does art lie about what life truly is? And does this subpsyche take away when it downplays one group of people to make them feel more in the world? We were the gods of the earth, and you can never see it in Hollywood's reflection because it's a driven agenda. It's an agenda that says, oh, well, we're going to make it all inclusive. They're going to show you this movie, and they're going to show the Atlanteans being Mayan or Mayan Indian-like from South America. You know, it has always been far-fetched to believe them, for them to believe in any reality that any brown-skinned or black people could do incredible things. Hell, we fought with them for years over Egypt, and it's the aliens built the pyramids. How could they get them up there? You know, and now a lot of architects, archaeologists, and let me explain something about archaeologists here. Archaeologists are funded by people with agendas. So these archaeologists, they'll go out and they'll research something, and they'll say, oh, religion. And they'll bring it back. But the people funding them, if they bring back something that they don't agree with, they'll be like, hey, I'm not paying you to go out and tell exactly what you found. I'm paying you to go out and make whatever agenda we look at. And this is often, or had often been in the past, a white supremacist agenda. They didn't want to tell that there were more pyramids built in southern Sudan, or South Sudan, or North Sudan than it was in Egypt actually. And that the Sudanese and the Egyptians were so much like that. A writer they have, his name is Herodotus. Herodotus entertained the fact that Egyptians and the Ethiopians and the Nubians or Sudanese all looked alike. You couldn't tell one from the other except for their cultural differences or their ethnic diversities. But yet, they still decided that because the people that occupy Egypt now, which are not the original Egyptians, when they got there, were the original people of this land. Hey, if you come to America, we're not the original people of this land, but yet we occupy it now. And then if you ask some of us how we got here, it's through vicarious circumstances, because my ancestors, I don't think they were volunteered for the trip. Okay. So that being said, how does religion tie into this? Because Moses himself would have known about Atlantis, because he would have had privy access, being to Egypt at that time period, to write about the Atlanteans. Because these documents were kept, like I said again, in the halls of Horus, where the priests studied, and they studied the writings of Solon. And Moses, being raised as an Egyptian, would have had a chance to write about these, because he wrote about the 42 laws of Mayat, which is what we would call the 10 Commandments in its long form. Look that up when you get the chance. So, how is this important? Okay. Religiously. The tie-in religiously here is that Atlanteans being the first people to make a city with 10 sub-city states and conquer all of northern Africa, all the way from West Africa, Mauritania, to Egypt. Then to have a organized, run capital, which was that city called Atlantis, would prove that we were the first people on the planet to create civilization. And the rest of the world knew about it, or the rest of the known world at that time. And it amazes me because those who say known world, they're speaking of the ones who could write and read. And then to say that a cataclysmic event happened. Now, the sub-Saharan desert. The sub-Saharan desert was not always a desert. It used to have waters and lakes and rivers, very massive ones. And what they call the Rishat, or the Eye of Africa. All we have to do is apply common sense to reasoning, and you would see that Plato's description matches this place exactly. And is it so far-fetched for you to accept the fact that, hey, maybe an ancient civilization with advanced technology that could have started religion, culture, government, they could be black or brown people? Some of us been.
So the narrative of black people in the United States was, you know, you came from these primitive, savage people who had no history, and everything you are, we made you.
Strip the African of his knowledge of himself. You can then replace that knowledge with any falsification of consciousness you desire. Once you take from me my knowledge of myself, you can then tell me those lies.
To get someone to actually think that someone else is inferior, you have to raise that type of mentality to a religious level.
Remember, when they attacked Africa, they did not attack Africa physically. They did not attack Africa educationally. They attacked Africa spiritually. Jomo Kenyatta said when the European first came to Africa, the Africans had the land and the white man had the Bible. White man told him to close his eyes, get on his knees and pray. Jomo said when the black man opened his eyes, the white man had the land and the black man had the Bible.
It's just been awful how they've did us in religion. And our people tend to think that even those who feel that they know that white Americans have mistreated us, their grandchildren or great-grandchildren still mistreating us in a lot of ways, they still believe, well, but nobody would lie about God, when that's not true. People who are trying to subjugate another people and turn them into slaves, not just physically, but mentally, then they certainly would try to teach them that God looks like me. We thought the only God we had was the one that white people gave us, which was Jesus, okay? And he looked like them. And when we saw them, psychologically, we would transfer that was deity. If it really was unimportant what he looked like, then why didn't he look like some of the majority of the people on earth? Why would he look like the people who are the minority race on the entire earth? We're not the minority.
People always ask me, why do the black church not get rid of the white Jesus and put a blue black Jesus in place with a nappy head? Because black people would stop going.
In fact, today, if you were to go to Africa and talk to the children who've been Christianized, they will tell you that their ancestors covenanted with devils, and this is why black people are in the condition they are today. So turn to Christianity, and of course you turn to the oppressor's religion, and then you eat the gruel that they give you, and at the bottom it says Jesus saved you. Of course, you're conditioning that person for another 1,000 years.
Christ. When you talk about the image of Christ, it is important that we no longer ascribe to the European image of Christ. Why? Because the brain is an associating organism. It stores everything as pictures. And because it is associating, if you force feed an African child that Christ is white, because the brain associates, As that child begins to grow, the brain will associate white Christ with white people. And so if white Jesus is God, then white people must also be the gods of humanity. And so guess what? The power in the painting is transferred to the people who resemble that painting. And so it is difficult to pray to a white Jesus and not in some way feel inferior to white people. And that's why when I talk to Christian ministers, I often tell them you have to change these pictures. They say it don't matter. Of course it matters. Why do you think the European went around the world and systematically altered the image of Christ in every major cathedral, every major church, every corner of the globe? Because it is difficult to oppress a people whose image of the God doesn't look like the oppressor. But when God and the oppressor look one in the same, then the people will come to believe that the oppression was ordained by God.